Good afternoon to all. On behalf of Puducherry Climate Change Cell, it is my privilege to extend a cordial welcome to each one of you to this climate change webinar series on the theme Global Practices in Climate Resilient Urban Development. This webinar aims to facilitate knowledge sharing on international best practices, emerging frameworks, and innovative approaches that strengthen urban resilience in the context of climate change. To formally commence today's webinar, I respectfully invite Sir K. Kalamegam, Environmental Engineer, to deliver the welcome address to the gathering.
Good evening to all. On behalf of the Puducherry Climate Change Cell and Department of Science, Technology and Environment, I extend a warm welcome to everyone who has joined this webinar on Google Meet and YouTube Live, including all the officials from the various Department of Puducherry who has joined us today. Welcome all. We are privileged to have with us Ms. Smriti Prasad, Manager, Urban Planning India, C40 Cities. C40 Cities is one of the most influential global networks advancing climate leadership in cities. Its work from climate budgeting and resilient zoning to zero carbon mobility and inclusive adaptation has helped cities worldwide implement science-based, equitable, and people-centered solutions. We look forward to learning from Ms. Smriti's experience, who has been working closely with Indian cities. Cities today are engines of economic growth and human development. Yet, ironically, they are also among the most climate vulnerable spaces. Heat waves, intense rainfall, rising seas, cyclones, waterlogging, and urban flooding are no longer distant risks. They are lived realities. Urban resilience has therefore become a development necessity. It determines how well a city can absorb shocks, continue essential services, protect livelihoods, and safeguard infrastructure and public well-being. Loss of wetlands is not an additional cost. It is an investment, one that protects lives, reduce long-term losses, and safeguard economic development. With that, I once again welcome Ms. Smriti Prasad and all our participants. I wish everyone a rich and insightful session. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the warm welcome address. I now request Balaji, Senior Project Associate of Puducherry Climate Change Cell, to introduce our today's speaker for this webinar.
Thank you. I'll introduce the speaker, Ms. Smriti Prasad. She has a master's in planning from Center for Environmental Planning and Technology, Ahmedabad, and she is currently serving as the manager, Urban Planning India at C40 Cities, Chennai. At C40, she leads impactful works on mainstreaming climate action into urban planning frameworks for Tamil Nadu, and also in clean air zone studies in Chennai and in Madurai, contributing to the district climate action plans in Tamil Nadu and climate budgeting for the Greater Chennai Corporation. Prior to her service in C40, Ms. Smriti worked with ITDP India, leading the implementation of the Tamil Nadu electric vehicle policy. Over the past 7 years, she has built a career at intersection of climate action, sustainable mobility, and urban planning, combining technical expertise with hands-on experience in government engagement. Pleasure to have you, ma'am, as a speaker today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to the Department of Science, Technology and Environment, Government of Pondicherry, for having me here for this insightful session. And I'm looking forward to have a very interactive session with you all. Balaji, would you be sharing the screen or?
Yeah, in a moment, ma'am.
Okay.
Is it visible?
Not yet. Yeah, now it's visible. Sure. Shall I begin?
Yeah.
Okay. So good evening to one and all, once again. So as Balaji introduced, I'm Smriti Prasad, and thank you to one and all for giving me this opportunity. I'll be briefing on the global practices in climate resilient urban development in this presentation. So before I move into this presentation, I'll also be giving a very short introduction about what C40 cities is, and then I will be moving on to some of the works that we did, and then to the best case studies. Please feel free to unmute and ask any queries you have at any point of time. I don't want this to be a very monopoly session. I want it to be more interactive so that we could discuss with each other. And I'm also familiar in Tamil, so yes, please feel free to ask your questions. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah. So C40 cities is a network of almost 100 mayors coming from world leading cities across the world. And all of these cities have come together to work on the urgent climate action itself and work on the urgent need for the climate crisis. And we are there across the globe, across 7 regions. And if you move on to the next slide. So we as an organization, we completely work on pro bono basis with our government stakeholders because we basically function on a philanthropic model, and we work on 5 cities in India, and these 5 cities are member cities of C40. Usually to become a member of C40, there would be a membership fee, but in our case, the membership fee would be the city's commitment to work on the climate action and to move towards progressive actions on the climate crisis itself. So the 5 member cities in India of C40 cities are Ahmedabad, Bengaluru, Chennai, Delhi, and Mumbai. And we also work with some of the other subnational and tier 2, tier 3 cities as well. Moving on to the next slide, there would be some of the leadership standards. This is the crux of how C40 works towards, and our goal is to have by 2030 all the member cities of C40 to have established comprehensive governance structures and also considerations that is integrated across decision making, which will also be a part of the master plan. And I said before, our complete membership of C40 works on a basis of commitment and not a rather membership fee. Moving on to the next slide, please. So C40 cities have worked on a lot of climate action plans across the globe. And in India, if you see the next slide, we had worked on the climate action plan for Chennai and also the climate action plan we are currently developing for Krishnagiri and Tanjavur as well. So in the next slide, if you move, Balaji, yes. So this is the Chennai climate action plan that C40 cities developed with the Department of Environment and also with the Chennai Metropolitan Development Authority, CMDA, along with the Greater Chennai Corporation called as GCC in Chennai. And the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu had launched it on June 2023. On next slide, there would be a snippet of our current ongoing work on the development of Krishnagiri District Climate Action Plan and also the Tanjavur Climate Action Plan, which we are preparing now along with the Department of Environment and then the respective district collectorates. Next slide, please. So the goal of our organization is to now, because we have developed a lot of climate action plans across the globe and also cities within India. And our goal as in to now is to move from planning towards implementation and to focus on the implementation of the climate action plans itself that we have developed. So with respect to Chennai's context, after the Chennai climate action plan has been developed, we have been trying to integrate the climate strategies that we could extract from the action plan into the 3rd master plan, which is being developed for Chennai currently with CMDA. So if you move on to the next slide, I'll just take you through some of the initiatives that we are planning, that we are currently doing in Chennai with CMDA and also the Department of Environment. So in the next slide, if you move, Balaji. Yeah. Yes. So before I go into this slide about our work on the greenhouse gas inventory with CMDA. Could any one of you unmute and just let me know what is greenhouse gas inventory, or what is greenhouse gases itself in the first place? I just want to know if you are aware of the term here, so that we can proceed. I'll just give a couple of minutes for someone to unmute and explain what is greenhouse gases. Anyone? We are all here to learn, so please feel free to express whatever you have in mind when you see this word greenhouse gases, because this is a usual term we used in all of our climate plans and all the climate relevant topics. So yeah, anyone who knows what is greenhouse gases?
Madam,
Yes, please.
Madam, methane, carbon dioxide, such gases are coming under greenhouse gases, ma'am.
Absolutely, ma'am. So that is exactly the gases that encompass together the greenhouse gases itself. And thank you for that answer also, ma'am. So basically what greenhouse gases is that these are the gases that trap heat in the atmosphere. And as ma'am also rightly mentioned, carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide, these are the gases that are included as part of the greenhouse gases itself. But then you see each of these gases, the way they trap the heat from the atmosphere differs. So carbon dioxide traps heat in a different way, methane traps heat in a different way, nitrous oxide traps heat in a different way. So how do we collate all of these information together and measure the greenhouse emission in a city? So that's why we convert them to a measure called CO2 equivalent, carbon dioxide equivalent, so that all of these gases together combined are converted to a common measure. And then we could measure the overall greenhouse gases in a city. And then we could understand the kind of greenhouse effect and also the heat that is getting generated in the particular city because of the greenhouse gases that is getting emitted. So that is the crux of it. And then by greenhouse gas inventory, we mean that which sector in a city is contributing much higher for the greenhouse gas emission. For some cities, it could be transport. For some cities, it could be waste. For some cities, it could be even the stationary energy, that is the fossil fuel burning to generate electricity. That could also be one of the reasons for the greenhouse gases to increase in a particular sector. So that sector-wise division of greenhouse gas inventory, and also for us to understand on business as usual scenario, because right now there must be a certain greenhouse gases that is getting emitted in a city. So if we leave it without taking any proactive climate action, which is called the business as usual scenario. So by 2050, what will be the amount of greenhouse gases that gets increased, that we will be able to understand. And then in an ambitious scenario, which means again, if we take proactive climate action, then how much of greenhouse gases are we able to reduce from the business as usual scenario? So those are the two scenarios also what we project as part of the greenhouse gas inventory. And this is the exercise that we have done basically for Chennai. So as part of the Chennai Climate Action Plan, which we developed in 2023, we had initially done it only for this GCC area, which is the Greater Chennai Corporation boundary, which is of 426 square kilometer. But now the third master plan for Chennai, which is being developed by CMDA, they are developing it for an area of 1189 square kilometers. So, and then our previous climate action plan, we did the baselining of GHG in the year 2018 and 19. So basically we advise the cities to revise their own GHG inventory every 3 years minimum. So that we will have the most accurate database. So ours had crossed the 3 years timeline. So we decided to update our GHG inventory for a bigger area, which is this CMA area of 1189 square kilometers. And then we did it for this whole region. And we had the sector-wise distribution with respect to which sector is contributing higher. And this could be easily integrated and aligned with the Chennai's third master plan as well. Next slide, Balaji. So in the next slide, the second step, what we usually follow in the Chennai Climate Action Plan and the general climate action plans as well is the CCRA assessment, which we call it as the Comprehensive Climate Risk Assessments. So what is this climate risk assessment comprise of? So this is basically to understand the kind of climate hazards that happen in a city. It includes 5 climate hazards for our assessment, which will include the flood, the air pollution, the sea level rise, the heat, and also the drought. So all of these 5 climate hazards combined together, we had done the spatial analysis and kind of figured out this is a 1 by 1 square kilometer grid that you see in the whole city of Chennai. And then we have kind of understood which vulnerable pockets, where are the hotspots in Chennai with respect to the climate risk. So this is also one of the exercises that we did. So what is the use of doing this exercise itself? See, by understanding that you see a very darker brown pocket here and also red pockets here. The darker brown patches convey that is the most vulnerable climate risk zone in the city, and it needs immediate action, climate action with respect to the kind of zoning that we do for the city. It could be, if it's a flood risk zone, then either we propose low development or restricted development in that particular area so that we don't, we safeguard the particular region itself. So that's the intent of us doing this climate risk assessment, so that we will be aware of the kind of development that needs to happen in a city. Moving on to the next slide. So as part of this climate action, moving on to the next slide, please. Yes. So as part of this GHG inventory and also the CCRA assessment we did, we developed this comprehensive climate strategy, which could be for each of the sector that we did, for all the 7 sectors that is identified as part of the Chennai Climate Action Plan. And we were able to provide recommendations to the 3rd master plan of Chennai with respect to which zones could be the low emission zone, what kind of amendments needs to come in the DCR to promote more solar energy. All sorts of those recommendations have been combined and put up here. Moving on to the next slide, please. So this is also one of the engagement that we have worked with Kumta here. This is only a baseline analysis that C40 has done. This is on the clean air zone. So what is clean air zones itself? You must have heard of the term low emission zones or clean air zones. So both are of the same meaning. So clean air zones means a particular area is actually restricted from higher polluting vehicles to enter, and also the particular area only allows cleaner vehicles to pass through. So that is the intent of this overall clean air zones itself. And then it could, a lot of strategies could come into the clean air zones where public transport and also the NMT, which is the walking cycling methods, are promoted, and the higher polluting or the very older vehicles are restricted or at least given a fine to enter the zone, and then the cleaner vehicles are allowed with some sort of incentive to enter the zone. So this is the basic idea, and through our baseline assessment of understanding the PM 2.5 emissions, the PM 10 emissions, NOx emissions, and also overlaying that in GIS with the population density, and also understanding the vulnerable population in terms of children and also vulnerable infrastructure in terms of public transport, school, hospitals, all of that overlaid together, we had a combined map of what is the most potential hotspot for us to choose the clean air zone. And then based on our baseline assessment, these 3 areas, what you see on the map, has been identified as the potential clean air zone. The next step for us would be to discuss this further with the city, to narrow down to a particular zone, and then to kind of do a very detailed implementation plan in trying to understand what could be the strategy that we implement on freight, what could be the parking strategy that we have, that we'll be implementing on that particular zone, so that our area is less polluted from like the vehicles through restrictions and all. And similar exercise we also did for Madurai. So Madurai, around the Madurai Meenakshi Amman temple, there are concentric streets around it. So 1 or 2 streets around it are also discussed in terms of having it be chosen as the potential site. Moving on to the next slide. So from the next slide, I'll be speaking about the global best practices itself for the climate risk informed land use planning. Although I explained some of the work that C40 had done previously on and also is currently doing along with CMDA, these global case studies will also help you understand in terms of what Pondicherry could also get inspired from. The intent of presenting all the case studies is for Pondicherry to have some takeaways in terms of initiating some of the policies or strategies that could move towards more climate resilient urban planning. So I'll start with the case studies now. So with respect to Seoul's case study, if you see in the map of Seoul, the previous climate change risk assessment, what I explained, CCRA. So that here in the context of India, we organizations like us, we do it on a free of cost basis to the government, and then that is being sort of referred to before preparing the third master plan. But then here in the case of Seoul, what they have done is that they have integrated this whole process of climate change risk assessment itself as part of their master plan process. It is a process, a legal process of preparing the master plan in the case of Seoul. So they have done this climate change risk assessment, and where you see on the map, the green patches are the areas where there are low risk so that the development could potentially happen. And then the yellow orange patches are also areas with moderate risk where the development needs to be strategic, and red ones are the highly no development zones where the risk is really high, and then the development should actually not happen in these areas. So this Seoul Master Plan 2040 is a very good example for us to kind of understand how this climate risk is already integrated as part of the master plan, and it's not added as a footnote rather into the master plan itself. Moving on to the next slide. So here we see Auckland's example. Auckland is a city in New Zealand. So here in the case of Auckland example, even if their future development strategy for 2023 to 2053, which is a 30-year growth plan, they have incorporated the same CCRA assessment into their master plan as well to kind of understand where climate risk is high and low. And then on the map you see on the right here, they have done an opposite color gradation here. So the red patches, what you see are the areas where immediate development could happen, like 2025 plus year, what you see here on the map, they are the years that they have written. So 2025, these red patches, immediate development can happen. Then it moves on gradient to like other orange and yellow patches where potentially later the development could happen. And they have also marked areas where red flagged areas, what you see here, where no development should happen. And also there are areas for removal. So this means that in the previous master plan, they would have predicted some areas for potential future development. But then with the recent climate risk assessment, which is done as part of the master plan, they would have figured out that that zone is also as part of the high risk vulnerability hotspot. So let's not do any potential urbanization or development in that. So in the new master plan, in the revised updated master plan, they designate those areas to be removed. So that this sort of map is also as part of the Auckland's urban strategy. And their intent is to promote the development within the already urbanized area rather than sprawling it or increasing the area of the city itself. So that is also one of the key proposals that is there as part of their master plan. And also they wanted to focus more on the nature-based infrastructure. So nature-based infrastructure is nothing but the wetlands within your urbanized areas. It could be the parks, it could be the forest. So these are the nature-based infrastructure that is there in your city, which needs to be protected to safeguard the ecosystem in the particular city. So this is Auckland's urban expansion strategy. Moving on. So moving on, here you see Philadelphia's approach to flood-prone zones. So on the right, you see Philadelphia city and then the Delaware River, which is running across the city. This is a GIS-based flood-prone map that has been done. So these orange patches and yellow patches, what you see are the surface flooding map. So these areas are prone to water getting like inundated, and then the development that needs to happen in a very strategic way in these zones. So Philadelphia as FEMA is known as the Federation of Emergency Management Agency in Philadelphia, and they are in charge of actually restricting enforcement for development that happens in this zone. So any sort of development or redevelopment that happens in this particular zone needs to follow the flood risk zoning, and they need to get clearance from FEMA for any sort of development that needs to happen. So this building codes are there to a level of what should be the foundational height, how the elevation should be, what sort of emergency measures should be there as part of the development. All of that is included as part of the zoning code itself for the Philadelphia's flood-prone area mapping. Moving on to the next. So even London has taken a similar approach. So you must all be aware that London, Greater London has the City of London and also the boroughs, which is maybe in our terms, it could be even the wards, but then the boroughs would be also the smaller pockets. So London has almost around 32 boroughs here. So each of the boroughs have taken the responsibility to demarcate critical drainage areas. So these are the critical drainage areas in each of the boroughs. And the reason they have demarcated this is because this is the most flood inundated prone zone in that city. And also London is also getting highly urbanized within the certain pockets. And it's also very necessary to do this flood risk assessment. So any development that happens within this critical drainage area, the particular developer or whoever is going to construct a building in that area needs to do a flood risk assessment. And this flood risk assessment will be evaluated by the Environment Agency. And then the necessary building approval and permissions will be given for them to construct a building here. So also one of the critical feature is that in the next slide, if you see, so in London, any new development that comes, so they have taken a very, very good measure, and this is also very inspiring to see that in a new pocket, if a development happens, they have sort of ensured it through the master plan that the kind of runoff, the water runoff that the empty pocket of land had, in spite of any development that happens in that land, the previous runoff should match with the runoff of the building after development. So say because in a previous empty plot, it would be just empty. So even if even the rainwater, all of it easily penetrates into the ground and it will be easier for water infiltration to happen. But then if a development has happened, they would be required to prioritize rainwater as a resource. They are required to follow the rainwater infiltration and also the discharge of water disclosure into the drainage channel systems that is there. So to equal the surface runoff before and after urbanization is a very key measure what London has taken for the sustainable drainage. And this is running very successfully currently because any new development that happens is not affecting any water infiltration in that particular area. It is not causing any excessive vulnerability to flooding because the building has to incorporate the necessary permeable surfaces or trees and also the necessary sort of water harvesting, rainwater harvesting in their particular plot to even get the approval for building. So that's a very good step for us to get inspired from as well. Moving on. So Singapore also on a similar basis, they also have a plan to collect every drop of water. So this is one of their agenda itself. So as you all know, Singapore is a small land. They don't have enough land for expansion as well. So they're a small land under a lot of stress for fresh water because they are surrounded by sea. So for fresh water collection and also to regenerate the water bodies within the region, what Singapore has done is that they have man-made all the 7 reservoirs which catches rainwater and stores, and they have also kind of integrated all of these reservoirs through almost 8,000 kilometers of drains and canals. Through that, they have tried to integrate all of these channels and created an integrated reservoir system, and their agenda is to collect every drop of water. And they also have a goal like by 2060, almost 90% of the country aims to increase its water catchment area to 90%. So that is also one of the future goal that they have as part of the Singapore. And this is a good case study for us to look at the integrated water infrastructure system, because only through that Singapore is trying to collect all the water and identify the necessary pockets for collection, and also reusing this water and turning them into potable water for the residents of the country. So that's a very good example as well. Moving on to the next slide. And so we saw about like the with respect to the city planning, and also we saw with respect to the water planning. Now this is from the aspect of heat resilient land use. So London, again, as part of its master plan, which is SI4 of London master plan, what they have done, they have identified a sort of six-step strategy to kind of plan the cooling comfort. And this starts from limiting unwanted solar gains, which is having the building orientation in a way that the solar gains are reduced, and also looking at the shading of the building. So all the building related shading orientation is kind of involved to avoid solar gains. And minimizing internal heat gains is to avoid any lighting or appliances that adds to the heat inside the building, rather using energy efficient appliances by LED or even energy efficient appliances within the building, so that it reduces the heat that gets trapped within the building. And also by managing heat within the building, also that is also through either having higher ceilings, so that cooler air stays low, and then the hotter air moves to the higher ceiling and gets out of the building like sooner. So such sort of building heights, which is contributing to the management of heat within the building. And passive ventilation through maximum windows, and then cross ventilation happening. Mechanical ventilation is the fans, and also the sort of coolers what they use, and the active cooling is the AC. So ACs, they have targeted and put it as the least step to be taken for climate comfort, and then the first steps with the bigger umbrella comes from the building orientation itself. So for us, it's a very good point to understand that London's maximum heat temperature is just 23-25 degrees Celsius. With that heat itself, London has started thinking about urban resilient building designs, and they have considered heat action plan as a very important criteria for them to move forward, so that the heat within their city is not getting increased. So it's important for us to understand that being a coastal city, the kind of humidity and then the heat that we experience is a lot higher than what London experiences. And these measures are in reality something that we need to prioritize, and looking at how other cities with even lesser temperature are even thinking about it ahead. Moving on to the next slide. So this is a slide about green roofs, and this is also prioritized to bring thermal comfort, and also like the heat resilience aspect is also brought in with green roofs here. So Toronto, a city in Canada, they have adopted this green roof bylaw as part of their municipal code itself in 2009, which came into implementation in 2010. So this states that any development that happens which more than 2,000 square meters gross floor area, which means your like plot size, your built-up area, and then all the area included together. If it crosses 2,000 square meters, then you will have to provide green roof. But then that also varies on a grading basis. So if you have a smaller like if you're just meeting the criteria, then it would be just 20%. But if you have a very large building, then up to 60% of available roof space should be turned into a green roof. So this Toronto had done in the year 2010, but inspiring from Toronto city, if you move on to the next slide, Mumbai has very recently launched this policy on the vertical garden and also the new rooftop terrace with the same criteria. If you see, mandatory for all new buildings with a plot size greater than 2,000 square meters. So this is an inspiration that Mumbai has taken from Toronto, and then the Mumbai Municipal Corporation have very recently launched this rooftop policy, mandating all the developers to kind of provide rooftop based on the gradated 20%, 60% for the city itself. If you move on to the next slide. And this is a very good example for us to look at Sao Paulo, Brazil. So here what they have done is the environmental quota. That is something that they have come up with on permeable urban development. So environmental quota means if a developer is going to build more than the development happening for 500 square meters, which means more than maybe 2 grounds. So if your development is on an area more than 2 grounds or 500 square kilometers, then this environmental quota EQ index will apply, where the regulatory body will have a certain minimum EQ quota based on the kind of permeable layer that the building needs to have, the green roof the building needs to have, or sort of the number of open spaces that the building needs to have, or even in terms of the water harvesting. So all of these terms combined, they have an EQ index from smaller to larger based on the area of the plot itself. And this is mandated in Sao Paulo, Brazil's building itself, so that if you are developing more than a particular area, you have to meet the requirement mandated by the development authority, which is in turn making more climate resilient urban development around. And even in the same next slide, you see Aman. Aman is also on moving on the same line, but Aman has not mandated. So Aman has been trying to promote the green building itself for a longer time. So what they did strategically is that so for the developers to build green buildings on their own, it is costing them high, so they didn't see sort of green buildings getting built on a large basis. So they wanted to incentivize this on a voluntary basis. So they created this voluntary density bonus. And also Amman is a city in Jordan, and in Jordan, if you see, there is national building codes and also laws available. So there is not a city-wide law that is available. So as a city, what Amman did was to introduce this voluntary density bonus program, where if a builder is meeting the criteria of the Green Building Council and they develop certified green buildings, then extra density bonus, voluntary density bonus is given to that developer for him to develop an additional floor or additional area in the more than what is permitted in that particular zone. So this is also a way to voluntarily incentivize the builders to move towards green buildings. Moving on to the next slide. Before I just explain about few concepts on the compact city, I just want to ask a question here. So it's based on one of the previous slides that I presented. Does anyone want to explain how London managed its development in a flood-prone zone? I had explained it in one of the slides earlier. Please feel free to express. Yeah. I'll just take a couple of minutes to pause. I'll repeat my question again. How London managed development in a flood-prone zone? What strategy did they use? Anyone? It'll give me a relief that at least people are listening. Anyone who wants to explain? I'll just take another minute to wait. Someone is unmuting. CM's Green Fellow, Rani Pet. Hi.
I think,
yeah.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, please.
I think if I remember it correctly, the London city, they have identified climate drainage, critical drainage areas, and they have done flood risk assessment. And based on that, they will carry forward with the developmental activities.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for saying that. At least I'm a little relieved that people are listening. So absolutely right. London, through the critical drainage zone areas only, they have identified the developments which needs to take flood risk assessment in that particular area. Now we'll just move into some of the case studies that we will be seeing for the compact city. So this is the Europe's no net land take policy. This is the very famous policy that most of the countries in Europe are following, especially France, Italy, and Germany. And by what do you mean by no net land take policy is that imagine a city has 100 square kilometers, and then the urbanized area of the city is 40 square kilometers, and then the 60 square kilometers is yet to be urbanized, and it's a natural agricultural land with the natural systems. So by no net land take policy, we mean that say in the next 20 years, that particular city urbanizes more. So the urbanized area from 40 square kilometers increases to 50 square kilometers. Then the land take amount is 10 square kilometers there. But in the case of no net land take policy, what the particular developer or the builder, whoever is going to construct, needs to do is that if by dire need, if he needs to choose a land beyond the 40 square kilometers, then he should be urbanizing a particular area within the city, either by restoring water bodies or rejuvenating a particular area, wetland or something. So he needs to de-urbanize it and then compensate for the land that he is urbanizing. So in that way, though he encroaches 10 square kilometers of the undeveloped area, he also regenerates or restores 10 square kilometers of the area that was already depleted. That way, the net land take would be nullified and it would remain 40 square kilometers. So this is the concept. Please feel free to interrupt me if you have not understood this concept. And here in Europe, what they have doing is that the idea is to redevelop within the city rather than sprawling and expanding beyond the city. Their idea is to create compact city and develop within the city rather than sprawling. But if there comes a dire need to sprawl beyond the compact zone, then the particular developer will have to restore a dilapidated area or a water body or a dilapidated land use to back to its nature's form, so that the net land take is zero and it will remain the same. So that is the whole concept here. And in the map, if you see countries like France, Italy and Germany are actually the more redder patches, what you see here. So the net land take is higher there. Maybe they need to enforce stricter regulations so that they meet the net land take policy, no net land take policy, and keep it remain as such. So that's the whole idea of it. Moving on to the next slide. I hope everyone understood on this concept. If not, I'm happy to repeat it again. And here the no net loss is of a similar concept. So if you are encroaching a wetland or developing around the periphery of the wetland here, London and New York have taken an approach where you need to restore it elsewhere. You cannot just encroach a particular wetland body and then leave it as such, but then you need to restore it elsewhere so that you compensate for the urbanization that's happening in a particular place. So that is the idea, very similar to the previous no net land take policy that we saw. Only difference between London and New York here is that London, they have a wetland banking system where say if I'm a developer and if I'm encroaching a periphery of a wetland area and I'm developing a plot there, I'll be given a compensation fine which will go into the wetland banking system as a central fund, and then the government could use this central fund and then use it for the wetlands overall for the city. So this is a very good approach in the terms of you don't develop on a on-site and in situ basis, but rather you develop, you contribute to the compensation fine on a central banking system, and then the government distributes the money eventually and equally wherever it is necessary for the restoration of the wetlands and also safeguarding the wetlands across the whole city. So that's the approach that London has taken, but New York does not have a central banking scheme approach on wetlands. New York approach is basically from one-to-one developer basis. So one developer, if he encroaches, then that particular developer needs to restore it elsewhere by compensation. Rather, it's not a central scheme with respect to New York. That's the difference here. Moving on to the next slide, please. So Sydney, what they have done, they have done a metro scale GIS strategy where they have mapped all the parks within the city, and they are trying to understand by linking the green spaces within the city. In Singapore, we saw that Singapore was kind of trying to integrate all the reservoirs within the country, right, in terms of having an integrated water management system. Here, on a similar basis, Sydney is trying to integrate all the green spaces. So here they are looking at if they have a consolidated GIS database of where are all the green parks are, where are all the open spaces are. Through that, they are able to understand where the connecting pockets should come through in the future, or where the future development with respect to the nature-based solution should happen. It's a very essential exercise analysis that the city is doing in terms of having integrated green grid spaces planning. And this is an exercise I feel cities like us should also do, because I understand that currently in Chennai, there are a lot of sponge parks that is getting implemented. Almost up to 88 sponge parks has been implemented in Chennai, but all the sponge parks are not there on a consolidated GIS database yet. So it is all in silos. Each of the zone, whichever has a sponge park, they are looking into the zone, but we don't have a consolidated GIS map of where are all these sponge parks in Chennai and what is the water retention capacity in each of these sponge parks. All of that is not on a data basis. We all have that on an anecdotal basis currently in Chennai. But Sydney has gone way beyond that. They have interconnected this. This is a very valuable case study for us to take it, that we could do it in our own cities of trying to map it. And this itself provides us with a lot of opportunity in terms of where the development needs to happen and what sort of development needs to happen. We will be able to analyze it from such maps. Moving on to the next slide. So Oslo in Canada, what they have done is that wherever there are water bodies, so for main waterways, 20 meters buffer is what they have established. And for secondary waterways, 12-meter buffer. So wherever you see a water body, this is also part of the master plan. This is Oslo's municipal plan, and they have mandated that the water bodies needs to have this buffer. This is that in future, if the water body changes course of its ways, or even if there is unpredicted like extensive amount of water which is getting into that, all of it will be planned in terms of having this buffer zone in place so that the urbanization can happen in a safer place. And this is also a good example for us to look at. Moving on. And Cape Town is a city in South Africa. What they have done in their master plan is they have defined this urban development edge, what you see, this red dotted line here. So this means that no development should happen in this green zone, and all the development that happens within the city should happen within this red line. Because this is a very eco-sensitive area, it is a forest, and a lot of parks are there, and it needs to be safeguarded. So this is one of the very stricter enforcement that Cape Town came up with to manage its urban sprawl and to keep the development and prioritize the redevelopment within the city. So wherever there are underutilized pockets within the city in terms of maybe a very old industrial site or a redundant mall, and they prioritize on redeveloping those areas first rather than sprawling the city and expanding the city just area wise. This is a very important case study. Moving on. So Cape Town, as part of their own strategy, they have also brought in this coastal edge protection strategy, where they have created this buffer zone, what you see, this green buffer zone. And if you see their overall map, there might be many other coastal edge protection buffers. And this buffer is a no development zone, that no development should have in this extended buffer throughout the city. And only the development needs to happen in the inland area and not in the seaward area. So this is also one of the important strategy that Cape Town is following as part of their master plan. Moving on. Yeah, so before I move to the last couple of slides and conclude my presentation, just one last question to the people here, because I took some time to explain about no net land take policy. Could anyone let me know what is meant by that? I had explained it for the Europe's strategy on known Atlantic. If you could explain in your own words to me, that's also fine. Just taking a minute to see if anyone understood the term. Yeah. Anyone?
Hello.
Yes, please.
I think that no net land tech policy in EU is to prevent urban sprawling. So,
Mhm.
so that is what I understood from that policy. So I think it is to prevent poor urbanization spreading to the neighborhood and to
Mhm.
have a compact city in plan, majorly to prevent urban sprawl in cities.
Yes, yes,
Please
yes. More
correct
or
me if
less.
I'm.
Yes, yes. More or less close. But the actual idea is if you're urbanizing a particular area, then you will have to compensate for it elsewhere by developing in terms of protecting or safeguarding or even de-urbanizing a particular area. So if you're urbanizing a particular land, then you have to safeguard wetland or deteriorated land or rejuvenate a water body of a same equivalent area and size so that there is no net land take. So that is the intent of it. If anyone is not clear, please free to ask me again. But then with the interest of time, I'll just move forward to the next last couple of slides on TOD. Please, next slide, please. So Copenhagen, this is a very famous finger five plan what Copenhagen has done in terms of its city plan. If you see all these fingers, these 5 fingers have their own transit corridors, and then the space between the fingers are designated as green spaces, which are technically not allowed to be encroached and no development zone. So it's a protected natural land between the fingers. And then the development is proposed in a way that it happens in these 5 radial corridors, which is the transit corridor. So this is a very famous finger plan that happened, that started from 1947, and lots of amendments have been coming to this finger plan on Copenhagen. Moving on to the next slide on, I'll be explaining one slide on London and one on Singapore. With that, I'll be closing. So the next slide on London's transport vision. So London has been very famous in terms of how the city promotes public transport and sustainable transport in terms of several formats. We have also heard that London had introduced the ultra low emission zones. By introducing even those low emission zones, they have strengthened their public transport within, and they have come up with a vision as part of their Mayor Transport Strategy 2018 that by 2041, London will achieve 80% of trips to be NMT, non-motorized platforms, by public transport, walking and cycling. That is the goal that London has. Moving on to the next slide. And even London, as part of their plans, they have demarcated the future transit corridors. So if you see in this map, if you see this is the Thamesmead and this is also one of the area. And as part of that map, they have provided this dotted link so that in future, this is a potential line for extension, and these come as part of the safeguarding policies itself, that these particular land should be safeguarded for future transportation infrastructure, and walking and cycling networks across the city should be safeguarded without converting the use of it to any other land use itself, and also reserving sites for future public transport methods. This is also one of the critical strategies that London has adopted as part of its plan. And the last slide is about the Singapore's TOD policy. When we speak about TOD, we cannot leave Singapore from the picture, because Singapore is one of the leading example of how TODs can happen. So Singapore, if you see, they have brought in also several metro and public transport networks. So this network, what you see is the radial network, the purple ones, and also there are circumferential network around the city. And they have brought in these dotted circles, what you see, which is these satellite towns. And these satellite towns, they have designed it in such a way that they are self-sufficient. Like if you can imagine the typical 15 minutes compact city concept, if you have your work place and also your like home and also the livelihood nearby. So that's the concept, and they have introduced that concept as well in these sustainable towns. And each of these towns have been at the center of a transit node. Wherever you see here, you see a transit node at the center of each of these towns. So the intent of this is to create more access to public transport, more access to affordable housing, and also create common public amenities very within the walkable distances. So this is the typical idea of a transit-oriented urban development, which is also a compact city. So I just have the last couple of minutes to kind of come to the way forward slide. So from all of these studies, what we saw globally, each city has taken one example, and if we could jot it down and bring it all together, it is about protecting our nature systems, and it is about doing the urban expansion not on a horizontal way, but rather within having compact cities and looking at redevelopment within our cities coming up as a repeated example throughout. And I would say for Pondicherry, the potential way forward for the city is to look at mapping all the climate like climate infrastructure, nature-based solution, and also the climate risk assessment for the city. So that could be legally protected within the city. And also, since Pondicherry is the coastal edge, and also there are the Pondicherry could define its coastal edge buffer zones and also the urban growth boundary, so that it could prevent very like the sprawl and also the unsafe kind of system for the ecosystem and the natural biodiversity there. And also can explore like mandates in the DCR amendments could also be one of the areas that Pondicherry could look at in terms of looking at mandating the green roofs, or also incentivizing them, the blue-green corridors, and also the heat-resilient building designs. These are all some of the aspects that Pondicherry could also look at. And also from the examples that we saw in Aman and also Sao Paulo in Brazil, we could also see the FSI bonuses that they introduced, the voluntary FSI bonuses, and also kind of voluntarily encouraging the public to build green buildings, because currently that is also lacking in all of our cities. And also looking at very compact transit oriented development, and to have the most important base out of all is to have the data integrated into GIS platform to kind of understand where exactly the gap is. So this essentially would be the first step that every city needs to do in terms of having consolidated GIS-based climate zoning systems. With this, I would like to conclude, but I'm please free to ask me any sort of queries if you have from any of the slides that I presented. Yeah. Any queries, if you have, you can ask me. Happy to answer. Over to you, Balaji. I think if there are any queries, people also can write to me. My email ID is sprasad@c40.org. And you can also connect to me if you have any queries. Yeah. Over to you, Balaji.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comprehensive and insightful presentation, ma'am. I now request Santalakshmi, Senior Project Associate, to give closing remarks.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Excuse me, Santalakshmi. One question has come in the chat box from Sudalai sir. How cities can respond to heat wave for commuters? Ma'am, could you please answer?
Yes. Yes. So I see the question on how cities can respond to heat wave for commuters, especially two-wheeler commuters. So this is also one of the critical strategy that I would say in terms of the urban greening. This is also a strategy that currently many departments are also looking at, because you see a lot of empty spaces across, even in terms of the median in between the roads, or even under the flyovers. There is a lot of potential for greening to happen, though there are concrete structures in place. So if we could look at some of the greening strategies under the flyovers, or even creating the medians, and also looking at the footpaths across where the trees could be planted on a regular interval, all of that could contribute to the commuter comfort. Yeah. And also there are some strategies that currently many cities are also initiating. At many of the signals, like priority big signals, there are also temporary green structures that are brought in. And it could also be thought through as a permanent green structure also. But right now what they are thinking of is a green sheet, what they are putting currently, so that the shade is extended for the queue length of the people whoever is standing in a signal. But then when we think about futuristically, we can also think about vertical gardens also, in terms of the that could be put up in each of these junction, which provides natural shade for the commuters as well. Yeah, we could think about various urban greening strategies that will help.
Thank you, ma'am. Now we'll move on to
Hello,
the
ma'am.
next. One more question, I think.
Hello.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Ma'am, very good informations we have gathered. You have shown about different plants in different countries, ma'am. How they are giving their lands somewhere else, equivalent land, up to how much distance they are accepting their lands, ma'am. If they
Okay.
are developing a city, and the people, when they want to give the land, equivalent land, up to how much distance they are taking, ma'am?
Okay, so currently there is no criteria on the distance part, Amrita, but what they are looking at is, say you are taking an agricultural land, a fresh agricultural land, and you are building on it, then that will be the urban sprawl area, because you are expanding from the city core area, and then you're taking a fresh agricultural land and developing it. At that point of time, the development authority would direct you to compensate for it in a city core area. For example, if there is a dilapidated pond or a dilapidated park or something, they would ask the particular developer to compensate money and develop and handhold that particular area until it goes back to its original form. So that's the kind of compensation that they are looking at right now, and the development authority is taking the full control of it in such cities. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. As of my knowledge goes, ma'am, in our situation, the possible ways are having rooftop garden and having vertical gardening. These are possible immediately, I think, ma'am, because our people, most of them, they cannot afford much on compensation, giving compensation to purchase land by the developers or the authority, ma'am. So when we want to build a house or purchase a house, we'll be spending money. Again, if we want to give compensation, it will increase the amount, no, ma'am. So
Yes.
for
Yeah.
our country, I think we have to think of making our area green.
Yeah, but on
That
a
is.
longer term, Amrita, if
Mm.
this comes as part of the, because even in the master plan, what the development authority they propose, they would have some land pockets where the potential development can happen, and there would be potential pockets where no development should happen. So it would be easier for the residents to choose the development where potential urbanization can happen, which is designated by the development authority, rather than going through the sprawl idea. So that way our country can make better use of it, because if the master plan says this particular area is a no development zone, it has to protect its own natural land, then it enforces stricter regulation, then no building permission itself will be given in the first place for us to buy a land there. Rather, we would be redirected to a potential pocket where the master plan designates it as a potential urbanized area. So that sort of mandation and stricter enforcement regulation should happen from the authorities' side, so that we protect our natural ecosystem. Yes, and as you said, immediately looking forward, like how Mumbai has launched the green roof policy, and our Indian cities itself have started launching it. So that could be something that we immediately look at short term. So among all the case studies that I presented, many comes as short term, medium term, and even some are even long term strategies that we need to look at. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Any other participants having any other question, you are free to ask. Otherwise, we'll go on to the closing remarks. Okay, then Santalakshmi, please give the closing remarks for this webinar.
Thank you, January. Good evening to all. On behalf of the Puducherry Climate Change Cell, Department of Science, Technology, Environment, I express my sincere gratitude to everyone who joined us for today's insightful session on global best practices in climate resilient urban development. First and foremost, I extend my heartfelt thanks to Ms. Smriti Prasad, Manager Urban Planning, C40 Cities, for her enriching and comprehensive presentation. Her detailed overview of global climate resilient planning, from hazard informed land use strategies to green blue infrastructure, compact city development, wetland protection, and transit oriented urban growth, has given us a broader perspective on integrating resilience into urban development frameworks. The case studies from Seoul, Singapore, London, Auckland, Cape Town, and other cities were truly inspiring and highly relevant for shaping Puducherry's future planning approach. Thank you, ma'am. I also express my deep appreciation to Thiru K. Kalamegam, Environmental Engineer, Department of Science, Technology and Environment, for delivering the welcome address and setting the context for today's discussion. Our heartfelt thanks to our Special Secretary cum Director of Department Science, Technology and Environment for her unwavering support and encouragement in organizing this webinar. Lastly, I extend my warm thanks to all the participants, from government officials, urban planners, researchers, green fellows from Tamil Nadu, and students. Thank you for all your participants. Let us carry forward the valuable insights gained today and work collaboratively towards building a climate resilient, sustainable, and future ready Puducherry. Thank you.
Thank you. We now wind up the session.